Good morning. We are on Kufches Amud Aleph. Back to the Gemara. 1088. The next, really to the rest of the page from where we are, which is maybe a little over a quarter from the top of the page. There's the there's a colon, and then the line under another colon. Right in between the two colons is a quote from the Mishnah that's going to be addressed presently. So from there, really to the end of the page, is going to discuss the laws of leaning to the left, the laws of Heseba, the mitzvah of leaning. Heseba. The leaning. That's what Heseba means. The leaning. It's like the how do you say it? Not the act of doing so, but the description of it as an entity. Like you describe leaning, that's the act of leaning, and then there's the leaning as like a description. Lahasiv means to lean, and Heseba means the leaning, the mitzvah of leaning, right? Or recline. I should say reclining rather than leaning. The mitzvah of reclining left is there. Anyway, and this point of the Torah, this Heseba is the mitzvah of reclining. So that's going to be for the rest of the page here, and then from there it's going to get into the mitzvah of drinking 4 cups of wine. That's going to last a little bit longer. Now, these two halachas, these two mitzvahs are very much linked because they're both for the purposes of demonstrating our freedom. Right? The mitzvah of, let's say, matzah is a biblical mitzvah. The mitzvah of marar is certainly biblical in origin, even if today it's only rabbinic, but it's certainly biblical in origin that the Torah says that you should eat the Pesach offering while eating marar, even if today that's only rabbinic. Matzah is also explicit in the Torah. 4 cups of wine and reclining, Heseba, are not stated in the Torah. They're rabbinic in nature to bring a festive, redemptive, free man element to the Seder. Reclining and the 4 cups of wine. Neither of those are biblical, they're both rabbinic.
There's allusions to it, right?
Yeah, there's allusions to it, certainly. And
more allusions, that's fine.
Certainly. So the sages will follow a pattern of scripture when they institute their mitzvahs or whatever you want to call it, their institutions. But nonetheless, it's still rabbinic in nature. And that's presumably why the two flow here. The Heseba, the leaning to the left, the reclining, and the drinking of wine. And the two indeed come together in the same chapter, Shulchan Aruch. Chapter 472 is the laws pertaining to reclining and drinking the 4 cups of wine at the Seder. And that chapter in Shulchan Aruch has 31 subsections. The first, I think the majority of it is about leaning to the left. The first, about half. Yeah, we'll see.
How hard could it be?
So the first 15 halachas are about the reclining, and then from halacha 16 to 31 is about the drinking 4 cups of wine. Well, actually, we'll see already. The halachas of each individual cup is separate. This is just the halacha of the mitzvah of 4 cups before you get even into the details of how each of the specific ones are performed, just as 4 cups as a whole. Yeah. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to learn the Gemara, this next half a page, about Heseb, about the mitzvah of reclining, learn the first half of 472, the Shulchan Aruch, Tofan Beis, and then we'll go to the Gemara about drinking 4 cups of wine, and then the second half of Tofan Beis. And then when we continue the Gemara, we'll go to Tofan Gimel 473, which gets into the laws of the process of the Seder as well, some of which I think we already began when we discussed some of the laws of combining Kiddush and Havdalah. Right? Because combining Kiddush and Havdalah is already after all these halachas. It's the halachas of the actual Seder, not the halachas that precede the Seder.
You did it first.
The Gemara isn't written in a kind of order, as we explained. Okay, so I think that's the trajectory over the next week, 2 or so. So let's begin. Between the two colons, the Gemara is quoting the relevant section of the Mishnah. Our Mishnah, the opening Mishnah, had a few halachas in it. The first halacha was about refraining from eating in the afternoon prior to the Seder to build up an appetite, which we discussed at great length.
Mhm.
And the second halacha was the following. Afilu anish b'Yisrael, even the poorest amongst the Jewish people, I mean, the most destitute, impoverished, la yochel, should not eat, at sheyesev, until he reclines. If that's all you heard, what would you think of this mitzvah to recline? When should it be performed, and how?
As soon as possible.
It doesn't say what you're eating. It just says don't eat unless you recline. Does that mean every single time you eat on the Seder night you must recline?
Maybe just once to fulfill that.
Or maybe just once to fulfill it.
It's okay.
Maybe just once until you. That's correct. That's right. That's a good point. So it says the Gemara like this. Itmar, we've been told. When the Gemara introduces a text with Itmar, it means it's coming from the post-Mishnaic era. It has to say that Maraic era. Otherwise, it would say Tanan, Tanya, the Tanya, which is references to either Mishnah, Tosefta, or Brisa. But if it's Itmar, it's from the post-Mishnaic era. So here it says, Matzah Tzarech Haseba. Matzah requires that one recline. Marar, but the marar ain't Tzarech Haseba, does not require the reclining. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more. First of all, and here's something interesting in there, and we're going to come back to this later because I forgot to mention, after we learn the Shulchan Aruch, I want to learn at least selections of a famous talk of the Rebbe about how the Rebbe understands the mitzvah of leaning, the mitzvah of Haseba, the mitzvah of reclining. There's a beautiful pilpul to understand exactly what it is. And the pilpul, the Rebbe's discussion comes down to this question. Is the mitzvah, the rabbinic commandment to recline, is that the sage is telling us that this is the correct way to perform the mitzvah of matzah? That you're eating matzah is incomplete unless you recline? Or is the mitzvah of leaning to the left, the mitzvah of reclining, an independent mitzvah? One must recline tonight. When do you perform it? When you eat matzah, when you drink wine. But it's not as if the drinking of matzah and the drinking of wine, which we'll see momentarily, is invalid unless you recline. One could see it both ways. You follow?
Yeah, it's almost like the mitzvah fits it, right? It could be, well, that would be not independent. It depends if you have a four-corner garment.
Right. So that's a conditional to the conditions at the present. Here,
Yeah, but no.
here, there, you have to have both.
It's either independent or
It's either independent mitzvah that you happen to perform while you're eating matzah, or matzah itself, our sages enacted, must be eaten when it's reclined. When you recline. And everybody's going to conclude that it's both, actually. But here you already have this. Because have the Mishnah frame it. The Mishnah said, don't eat unless you recline. As if it's independent mitzvah. That one should recline tonight. Like you were saying, at least do it once. Or maybe do it every time.
right.
It's independent mitzvah. But
Don't
then the way,
eat unless you recline.
even the poorest amongst the people shouldn't eat until they recline. As if to say, just do it once to fulfill the mitzvah. Or maybe do it all the time. Because it's nothing to do with what you're eating. It's the inherent enactment of the sage's mitzvah that this night requires reclining.
The question is
right?
Whether you would recline independently of eating.
Okay, the halachic ramifications we'll think about when we get there. If a person eats, whatever,
Okay.
leave it alone. But the concept of it, is it an independent mitzvah? Recline?
Well, you wouldn't recline without eating.
So it has to be performed during eating. But the mitzvah to recline is independent of the other mitzvahs.
Meaning, like if you didn't recline and ate
The matzah.
you fulfilled your mitzvah of matzah.
Exactly. If you ate matzah and didn't recline, you still have fulfilled your mitzvah of matzah.
Yeah.
You may have to do it again because you have to recline, but you still fulfilled your mitzvah of matzah.
Why would you have to do it again?
Because you have to recline.
Just recline.
You have to recline while eating. That's what the Mishnah says. Don't eat unless you recline. So you haven't performed your mitzvah of reclining. So you have another mitzvah to recline while eating. But the mitzvah of matzah inherently is performed, like you said. Or is it the other way around? The sages said, look, your mitzvah of matzah is incomplete unless you recline. right? So, but right away here, everybody's going to conclude it's both, and we'll learn why and how. But here already in these lines, you already see an open to this. Because the way the Mishnah phrases it is, it doesn't say, the Mishnah doesn't say even the most destitute shouldn't eat matzah unless they recline. It says, even the most destitute amongst Israel, lo yochel, shouldn't eat actually yosef until he reclines, as if to say there's a mitzvah to recline, independent. But the Gemara says it, matzah tzarech haseba, the matzah requires reclining, as if it's a part of the mitzvah of matzah. Right, so you already have the language that works for both of these ways of thinking already right in the first two lines about this discussion. Right, so we'll keep that in mind in the back of our heads, and we're going to come back to it when we learn the Rebbe's talk. But keep your eyes open to see how the Gemara and the halacha frames the various different obligations about reclining, and ask yourself, is this the mitzvah of reclining as an independent mitzvah? Or is this the mitzvah of matzah requiring that I recline? The mitzvah of wine that requires I recline? Or is independent mitzvah called reclining that happens to be performed during matzah and wine?
Seems like what's the relevance, whether it's an independent mitzvah or
The practical application?
Because
we'll get there.
Do one without the other.
We'll get there later.
They're inextricably intertwined.
Okay, we'll get there. We'll see the different hypotheticals. We'll get there, but at least conceptually now. Okay, so now. So what does the Gemara say? Matzah tzarech haseba, mara ain't tzarech haseba. Matzah requires that one recline, and mara doesn't. What are we taking from here? That the reclining is linked to our sense of freedom, and mara is a reminder of our state of exile, enslavement. That's not reclining, because the whole reclining is a celebration of freedom, and mara is the opposite. Okay, so therefore it's during matzah, yes, not during mara. What about wine? What about wine? Would you lean to the left during wine? Yeah, because we all do it. So let's see. Yayin, with respect to wine, says the Gemara, Itmar Mishmed Rav Nachman, we've been told in the name of Rabbi Nachman. Rav Nachman, an Almeida, a sage from the Gemara's era, and to the best of my knowledge, if I remember correctly, he even served as the Reish Galusa at one point. If I remember correctly.
What's that?
The exilarch.
Oh,
if I remember correctly, I believe he served at some point. I think. So, Itmar Mishmei Rav Nachman, we've been taught in the name of Rav Nachman that tzarech haseba, that wine requires that one lean, one recline. So the 4 cups of wine require that one recline. Itmar, and another teaching, Mishmei Rav Nachman, also in the name of Rav Nachman, Ein tzarech haseba. That wine does not require that one recline. So it is seemingly contradictory reports on what Rav Nachman said. One report tells us, right, so we're the redactors of the Gemara, so we're generation 2 or maybe 3 after Rav Nachman. Right? And I think it's 3. And
he was a very high authority.
Yeah, so 3, he was certainly very high authority. And 3 generations later, we're looking at this and we have 2 reports. One report that says Rav Nachman does not require anyone to lean during the wine, and one that says he does. So therefore, we have this conclusion also by tradition. V'loi pligi, these 2 reports are not in contradiction or an argument about what Rav Nachman said, because betarti kaisi kamoi, one statement is regarding the first 2 cups, and betarti kaisi basroi, and the other statement is about the latter 2 cups. But now, in our reports of what went down when this whole discussion happened, and the resolution in this discussion, we have 2 different reports of how this was resolved. We know Rav Nachman said these 2 statements. Wine requires leaning, wine doesn't require leaning. We also know that the reconciliation is that one statement is regarding the first 2 cups of wine, and the other statement is about the last 2 cups of wine. But which 2 replies to which statement is still up for discussion. Amri la, there are those that claim lahai gisa, this way. Amri la, and others say lahai gisa, that way. What's the rationale to go either way?
First
The ones who understand it this way, that the first two cups require leaning. Why is that? What was your rationale?
those are cups that are speaking of the enslavement, right?
So then you wouldn't lean in those first two.
or the freedom there.
Well,
Okay.
so it's like this.
It's a question.
The first two cups, the ones who understand it to mean that the first two cups require reclining, the hashta who become because now is when we begin our process of exiting. We are in the exodus process now, so we recline. But trei kaisi basroi, the latter two cups, loy bo aseba, don't require reclining because my dahaba, what was already, what was already. We're already out. We're gone. During the second two cups, we're after benching. We're after the matzah. We're after the tzafim. We're after eating the korban Pesach. Even, we're imagining we're in biblical times, even though in temple times, even though it predates Rav Nachman, but the halacha is still the same, right, rationally speaking, from the just pure logic of it. And now we're just normal life. So when we're celebrating the Exodus and we're like reliving the Exodus, now we're excited, recline, because we're getting out of here. But now that we're after this process is over, already out, and we're just sitting happily at our tables, we're drinking wine like regular. So no requiring to lean. The others say the other way around. Adrab, on the contrary. The second two cups of wine, Boa Seba, require that we recline, because ahi shaita, the kahabachedis, because now is the time when you're actually living in the freedom. But the first two cups of wine, don't require reclining, because we're still saying avodamayinu. So in other words, it's almost like this. When is the true freedom? When's the true joy? As you're leaving, or when the process is over and done and you're on your couch? So the first opinion says, when you're in the process of fighting your way out of exile, that's the truest joy. That struggle to get out. Even at the beginning of the story, it says we were free, we were slaves. That's the true freedom. Once you're done, you're done. The process is over already. And the other opinion says, no. While you're still in the process, you're still holding the baggage of slavery. Once it's done and over, and you're reclining on the couch and singing Hallel, now you're reclining really.
I would support the first argument because we don't recline any further after Seder.
We recline at Haggadah. At least
I'm saying after we don't continue that custom.
Okay, that's
today.
You're right. I hear right.
That's just an argument.
I think
the first argument.
Yeah, I think on a more like broad-based, if you want to get to the fundamentals of what they're thinking about here, you could turn this into like a farbrengen in a certain way. Like, what's the true celebration of success? When you're in the throes of the struggle moving forward, or when you achieved it and you can take a respite from it.
So that would be
the other position. So that's the other position, which says while you're still carrying the baggage of the struggle,
you don't have time to think about.
You're not in freedom.
There,
not
there yet.
Not there yet. Where the other opinion says once you're there, the story's over already. When you're not there and you're pushing your way through, now this is the real story. This is the real achievement. This is the real. So you can fabrik about this, and in anything like whatever Egypt we're dealing with, where's the true celebration? When it's over and you can look back at it, or is a celebration while you're pushing your way through it? While you're pushing your way through to that freedom, right? And not just we don't have to be so consistent in our opinion. Sometimes we'll feel this way, sometimes we'll feel that way, because there's certainly what to be said for both.
Right. Yeah.
So and therefore, says the Gemara.
So the conclusion is Rav Nachman it's not contradictory.
Say again.
Rav Nachman's position wasn't contradictory by those two statements going either way. It was just different scenarios.
Right. So there's two opinions as to. So the statements he said aren't contradictory, but the reports on what that reconciliation are conflicting. And therefore, considering that we have reports this way and we have reports that way, all four of them require they're reclining.
Is that
That's the halacha. We recline at all four.
based on doubt? They just
Okay, that's a good point. It's probably based on doubt because we're not sure which one. But also, I think more importantly, the phrasing in all these statements are not, even when it comes to Morar, it doesn't say, don't recline by Morar. It says Morar doesn't require reclining. Matzah requires reclining. Okay, so it doesn't say you cannot recline during anything other than the time we tell you to. Because again, to the point we made at the beginning, earlier, there is the understanding that the mitzvah of reclining is independent of these mitzvahs.
Apply that to wine.
Exactly. Because this is a phrasing.
Thinking as with Mara.
The phrasing of Rav Nachman is either wine requires leaning, or the other statement is the wine does not require reclining. Does not require reclining. Whichever two you're talking about.
Doesn't mean you can't.
Which doesn't mean you can't. Right? Because again, the point making
you should if you're
why not? And therefore, go ahead. Which is why the Gemara doesn't say we do both out of doubt. The Gemara concludes because we have this report and we have that report. Nowadays, bo seba. Each of these and these require leaning. Because why not? Because again,
you
understand?
And you don't have to.
Right. The Gemara's conclusion is bo seba. They both require leaning.
Maybe the sages enacted that they require out of doubt.
Well, it's not the sages because it's the Gemara. It's the redactors of the Gemara.
Or the redactors.
Right? Or maybe even the Rabbanon Savaroi, I wonder. Right? We require.
Not that the Torah requires.
No. Well, the sages anyway. We require both, considering we have both reports. Right? So
I'm just thinking, is it required because the sages or the redactors required it, or is it they're learning out through the Rav Nachman statements, or that all 4 cups are required? But it seems like it can't be by Rav Nachman that it's required.
Sorry?
It's not. It doesn't seem to suggest from the Gemara that Rav Nachman.
No, Rav Nachman doesn't require all of them. But we require all of them considering we have both of these reports. And there's nothing in Rav Nachman's statement to tell us we can't do it the other way.
No, for sure.
Right? Which gets back to the point we're making earlier, that especially if we see the mitzvah of Haseba as an independent thing. There's a mitzvah to recline tonight. And there's no point at which you can't do it. Like I mentioned, I think I mentioned this sometime a couple of days ago. The Rebbe said that his father used to recline when he would smoke a cigarette.
Yeah.
Because the mitzvah of reclining is an independent mitzvah. If the mitzvah of reclining was an emergent from the other mitzvahs themselves, then it's a question of which mitzvah is telling me to recline. And the other ones, maybe I shouldn't even, like Morar, I shouldn't. But if the mitzvah of reclining is just an independent mitzvah, thou shalt recline throughout the evening, and the question is which time is the best time to do it, then do it all of them. Why not?
So then Morar and the cigarette case is a good indication.
Okay, he doesn't say by Morar you should recline anywhere. And the answer is we don't, because again, it's a remembrance for.
Okay, so the case of
but if the person did lean to the left when they ate Morar, I don't think they would be obligated to eat Morar again without reclining, because you failed your obligation of Morar because you reclined. I don't know that that's the halacha. Maybe it is. We'll get there. We'll see. But I don't think that's the halacha. So if you reclined, nothing was done to undermine your Morar experience, even though it's awkward because it's strange that you're leaning when you're eating something to remember from slavery. But nonetheless,
it's a positive mitzvah. It's not a prohibition.
And it's a positive mitzvah that stands independent of any particular activity. It's
right.
Tonight requires leaning.
The cigarette case is an example of that.
Right. Even though as we'll see soon, we'll learn that we actually don't lean when we're not supposed to. Like we learned actually a couple of days ago, we learned that when it comes to the Shulchan Aruch, it never says that our custom is not to lean during the meal.
During the meal.
Right, which is other things that you can lean on when you're eating soup, when you're eating fish. Why not lean?
Right.
If the mitzvah of the night is to lean. So Rebbe writes in the Haggadah that our custom is not to. Even though following Rebbe's father's logic, why not? Just like you're leaning by the cigarette, lean by your soup and your fish. And I presume that there are communities that do that, because why not? The mitzvah of tonight is to recline as independent mitzvah. Nonetheless, Rebbe puts in Haggadah, like we saw, that our custom, the Chabad custom, is not to lean when during the meal. Maybe we'll get into that when we get closer, when we start unpacking more of this. Yeah. So just to conclude with the Tosfos on the left here, Tosfos points out that all of them require leaning. He doesn't have the same version of our Gemara. Our Gemara says, Kulunami, where is it? Ididi Boa Seba, which is a different version. Yeah, Kulanami. At any rate, he says like this. What happens if a person forgot to lean? Does he have to drink the wine again? Maybe he's following the other opinion of Rabbi Nachman. So long as I leaned in the first two or the second two,
You don't know which.
doesn't matter. Am I required on a doubt to re-drink the wine? Moreover, if I didn't lean by number 3, between 3 and 4, as we'll learn soon, I'm not allowed to drink. Am I allowed to? So if I miss cup 2, let's just say, right? Okay, let's play this out. There's 4 cups of wine, yeah? Okay. So either I have to lean by the first 2 or I have to lean by the second 2. And number 1 or 2 or number 3 or 4. If I forgot to lean during cup 2, let's say, or cup 1, right? Then sometime during the meal, drink another cup and lean. Why not? Just to redo your cup that you might have missed because you didn't lean. Right? Because why not? Okay. The question is, do I have to do that? Maybe I don't have to do that because it's on doubt anyway, and I'm about to hit 3 and 4, I'll lean then, following the other opinion of Rav Nachman, the other version of Rav Nachman. So I don't have to. Do I have to redo something on a doubt? It'd be nice if I did. Do I have to?
Because it's a doubt.
It's a doubt. I'll fulfill my obligation, maybe, by leaning on number 3 and 4. So maybe I missed nothing by skipping leaning on 1 and 2. So do I have to drink another cup?
But why not? You're not saying a bracha.
I didn't say why not. I said, why do I have to?
Oh, do you have to?
Right. Do I have to? That's the first question that Taisus asks. Do I have to? Let's say I'm running out of wine. I have to go knock on my neighbor's door and borrow. Right? That's question number 1. Now, question number 2 is, what if I missed number 3? So I drank the 3rd cup of wine, and I didn't lean. Now, the halacha is between 3 and 4, I'm not allowed to drink.
Wait, I don't quite understand.
Again,
you didn't lean
so I didn't lean during left. So if I didn't lean during cup 1 and 2, might as well drink another cup during the meal. Why not? Do I have to? I don't know, but might as well. Right, so the question remains, again, if I did not lean to the left during cup 1 and 2.
Oh, you didn't.
I did not lean to the left during cup 1 and 2.
Okay.
Do I have to drink another cup to make up for it? Maybe yes, maybe no. So just leaves it on open-ended. But like you're saying,
when? After cup 2?
After cup 2, during your meal, anytime.
Oh.
Just to properly fulfill the mitzvah of cup 1 and 2 by leaning. I missed my leaning during 1 and 2, one of them. So no harm, no foul. Maybe you don't have to. We're not sure if you have to drink another cup to make up for it, but why not, right? Because it's in your meal.
Okay.
Yeah, that was your point. Clear?
Yeah.
So we still have a question, do I have to drink that other cup? But at least I can easily get away with just drinking another cup if the wine's available to me. Okay. Now, what happens if I didn't lean during cup number 3? So I benched already. I drank a cup of wine after benching, but I did not lean. Can I now drink another cup of wine while leaning to make up for the fact that I didn't lean?
Say a bracha.
Yeah, bracha is irrelevant. Maybe I don't have to do a bracha because I already made a bracha.
You bench.
You benched and you made a bracha after benching when you make the guffin. Again,
No,
cup number 3 is after benching.
And cup of wine now.
Okay, so the question is not the bracha.
I
The question is like this.
No, I
The halacha ordinarily is you're not allowed to drink between cup 3 and 4. You may not. If you drank the cup number 3 and you lean to the left, between 3 and 4, you're not allowed to drink any wine. Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. The only way I'd be allowed to drink between 3 and 4 is if number 3 wasn't fulfilled properly. Now, in this case, I drank number 3 and I didn't lean to the left. So now, am I allowed to make up for it? If I didn't lean during cup 1 and 2, it's a question of, do I have to make up for it? But you're allowed to make up for it. Why not? Because during the meal. But after cup 3, if I didn't lean during cup 3, it's not just a question of if I have to make up for it. It's a question of, am I allowed to even make up for it? Because I'm not allowed to drink wine. And according to one version of Rav Nachman, I fulfilled my third cup perfectly. And therefore, maybe I'm not even allowed to make up for it.
Right, because there's an opinion that
Because there's an opinion that to begin with, you don't have to lean during number 3. Exactly. So Tosfos leaves these questions open-ended, and God willing, we will see more details of that as we explore the halacha further. But you can kind of see how all these hypotheticals, even though the conclusion is the same, that we just lean during all 4 of them, but the cases come up that make us rethink.
But isn't it? You said that reclining sable is a rabbinic enactment, right?
And therefore,
when in doubt,
rabbinic mitzvah.
you wouldn't do it.
Why not? Again,
There's
2 questions here. Do I have to redo it?
Well,
and then question number 2 is, may I redo it? So even if you're not required to,
well, it's like a
may
bracha
I?
Before you eat.
Sorry?
It's like a bracha before you eat. If you're in doubt whether you should do it or not, you wouldn't do it because it's a rabbinic enactment.
But that's a question of making God's name in vain when you make a bracha when you're not required. But what harm is there in drinking another cup of wine? Why not? Right? So the first question was, am I required to redo it? Okay, so like you said, it's a rabbinic thing. Maybe I'm not required. I don't know. But then question number 2 is, if I missed number 3, may I even redo it? Because there's another prohibition against drinking wine after number.
You would rely on the prohibition. Well, the prohibition, is it a rabbinic prohibition or is it a biblical?
To not drink between 3 and 4?
Yeah.
Rabbinic. They're both rabbinic in nature.
Well, I think that because it's rabbinic, then in doubt, you would not do it.
So again, you're asking from required. I'm asking, may I? Not from required to redo number 3. May I? I want to. I'd like to. I didn't lean.
Because you're presuming there's a mitzvah involved, not because
sure. There's a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to lean.
Right. So if it's a mitzvah, then you feel you're obligated to do it.
Correct.
So therefore.
So may I do that?
In doubt, you have to do it.
Again, you're answering if I'm required. I'm asking, may I?
No, but you're
saying I wouldn't have to. You're saying I wouldn't require. May I?
Choice, but if it's a mitzvah, you don't have a choice. You have
sure. Why not? I may do it again.
I'm looking at it from a different point of view.
He's asking, may you? You're answering his question, though.
May I? In terms of, do I have to? Not.
No, he's not asking that. He asked that about cup 1 and 2. May, if I have to. Now, question number 3 is asking, may I? I want to, because why not? What's lost?
So the mitzvah, though.
So, may I do it again in order to make sure I'm covered for the mitzvah? Or, on your doubt, we don't let you violate another prohibition, which is drinking between 3 and 4. Or maybe we say, look, you didn't do the mitzvah optimally, so do it again if you'd like to. May I? That's this question. We're not required to answer Tosfos' question. We're required to understand Tosfos' question. And then, God willing, we'll see other perspectives as we open halacha and we unpack more. Okay, so we still have a few more halachas about leaning before we get to the wine, and then we'll get to the Shulchan Aruch. And then all these things will become clear, God willing. We're certainly clearer.
Never clear.
Okay.
I shouldn't say never.
At least clear on what we don't know.
Maybe clear on the issue.
Yeah,
not clear on the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Clear on what we don't know, maybe.
Clear on the issue.
Okay, wonderful day, Eden.